When I like look at Maharaj-ji or read about him, and I guess most people, like the first thing that comes up is that famous saying, all you need is love. And that's what you're talking about. And I feel that the current generation, and that includes me, we are so fixated on just achieving like wealth, power, recognition, fame, success. We've really forgotten what we exactly need, you know, and that's a cause of suffering, the absence of love. So like
Sure.
how, and it took me so long to realize this because I'm 22 now, but I got admitted into USC in LA. And I don't know if you know about that school, but it was just like so-called really fun. And there's frat parties and drugs and everything going on. And I thought that was happiness, and everyone was so happy. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, basically, my mom took me out and she made me come to India. And oh God, sometimes I feel I've been in India for the last 4 years, even though I was born and brought
Uh-huh.
up in the US. And I feel that
Wow.
Maharaji saved me, because if I was there for those 4 years, I mean, God
Mm.
knows what would have happened to me. So it's like that false illusion of happiness you have. And I know
Mm-hmm.
you've experienced that too. I've read about you in your childhood. How do we get rid of that illusion? I know it's hard, but we need love. That is the truth. How do we realize that?
Well, really, everybody wants the same thing. Everybody's looking for a certain feeling. And you call it love, another person might call it something else. But it's the same thing they're looking for. You're looking for your own true nature. You're looking for your soul, which is love. You're looking for God, who is love. It's not like, well, so that love lives in everybody, but not everybody has the karmas to recognize that. You can't, you can lead a horse to water, they say, but unless the horse is thirsty, it won't drink. You can't make it drink. So people, which is why Buddha said, when he came out of the jungle, he said, the first truth of life is that there's always suffering involved. There's always dissatisfaction. Most people spend their whole lives avoiding that, understanding that, avoiding that fact. They take drugs, they pursue pleasure, they watch television their whole lives away. Whatever they do, and what they're really trying to do is avoid suffering. But they don't have the karmas to recognize that that's not the right way to avoid suffering. There's nothing, what we can do for other people is find the truth ourselves and manifest that as best we can in our lives and everybody we meet. You had a taste of that kind of life.
Yeah.
And you say, well, maybe I would have been lost in it. Maybe not. You never know. But at least you had a taste of it. So you know what
Yeah.
that tastes like. And you know it's not enough. But there's a lot of people who just don't know that. Well, what are you going to do?
That's true. But that's where the
Our
question of like
job,
free will and destiny comes in, right? That do you have that free will?
well, that's interesting. You
What
know,
are your thoughts on that?
yeah, I'll tell you. So, not some years ago, I was with Ma, Siddhi Ma. And I said to her, Ma, Maharaj-ji used to say to us, I have the keys to the mind. So I believe that. And so what that means to me is that I am where he has placed me. Not just physically, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, spiritually. I am where I'm supposed to be. So, Ma, what's the deal? I said, is it my effort is required, or is it all his doing, his grace? She said, Krishnadas, it's all grace, but you have to act like it isn't. That's really a phenomenal answer. Because on one level, the level of ultimate reality, it's all done. There's no time, There's nothing. All there is God all the time, and everybody's is it. But that's ultimate reality. We live in relative reality. In relative reality, there's time, there's birth, there's life, there's death, there's up and down, there's all kinds of things. In relative reality, we believe we are who we think we are. And so we should make effort to disentangle ourselves from those illusions. But on the other hand, where Maharaj-ji lives, no problema. There's nothing to do, nowhere to go. Everybody's God all the time. That's the reality. But we don't know that. So we have to recognize that it's all grace, but we have to act like it isn't, which means we have to make our effort. We have to cup our hands to catch the raindrops. Otherwise, nothing to drink.
Yeah. So, Krishnadas, now I want to go into, so I know a lot about this, but I want our viewers to know about some of Maharaj-ji's miracles. So can you start off with the LSD story? Because that one's my favorite.
Well, the first part of the story is, of course, you know that when Ram Dass first came to India, one of the reasons he came was he wanted to find somebody who could tell him what LSD really is. I mean, it changed his life, it opened him up, it gave him great experiences, but nobody really knew what it was. So he came to India and he was giving it to people, and then time went on and circumstances happened and he met Maharaj-ji, and he had a very deep, life-changing experience the first day. And the second day when he came back, Maharaj-ji looks at him and said, you have some medicine? Give it to me. So Ram Dass thought he meant aspirin or something. So he takes out some aspirin. He said, nay, the yogi medicine. The yogi medicine? Okay, he must mean acid. So he took some acid, put it on his hand and held it out. And Maharaj-ji took it all, threw it in his mouth. That was enough acid to put a horse on the moon. Wow. It was like 4 full hits that Ram Dass didn't even take a full hit, I don't think, at that point. So, and he sat around with Maharaj-ji all day, and nothing happened. It didn't change him at all.
Yeah.
This was a really big thing for Ram Dass, because here was somebody who was beyond the effects of acid.
Beyond
then he
the
came
body.
back to America. Yeah. Then he came back to America, and he started telling stories of Maharaj-ji all the time. And when he would tell the acid stories, sometimes people would say, oh, come on, he scammed you. He probably threw it over his shoulder. You know, nobody could take that much acid. So Ram Dass didn't believe that, but there was a little bit of doubt.
Yeah.
So a few years later, I'm in India now, and Ram Dass came after a while. I'd been there a few months when he showed up the second time. And we were on a pilgrimage in South India with Swami Muktananda. And we had been with Maharaj-ji, and he said, I'll meet you in Vrindavan when you finish with your pilgrimage. So now we were driving back up north from Ganesh Puri. And we came to Vrindavan, and Maharaj-ji, there's an incredible, miraculous story there. Can I tell it?
Yeah, yes, for sure.
Okay, so we got to the Vrindavan area very late at night. So instead of going to the temple, we stayed at the Krishna Janambhumi, which was halfway between Mathura and Vrindavan. And in the morning, we drove to the temple. Now, I was driving, and I missed the temple to turn to the temple, and as a result, we got stuck in the bazaar. You know, in the early morning with the push carts and the cows and the people and everything. So it took us about 20 minutes to get back to the temple. So we get to the temple and we get out of the car, we go in, it's deserted. There's no one there.
Yeah.
And the chowkidar says, I don't know where he is. I haven't seen him in months. Nobody knows where he is. So we were really, oh my God, what are we going to do? You know, there were no cell phones, there was nothing. What are we going to do? How are we going to find him? All right, we'll drive to Delhi. Maybe somebody will know where he is there. We get in the car. I put the key in the ignition, and I'm just about to turn the key, and a little Fiat screeches to a halt right next to us. And Maharaj-ji gets out of the passenger seat and walks into the temple, and he doesn't even look at us. He didn't even look at us. We went, what? And we went running in the temple, and we had the greatest time with him. We were with him for days. And so later that day, so about 10 years later, one of Maharaj's old devotees, Gurudat Sharma, says to me, do you remember that night, that day in Vrindavan when we arrived, Maharaj-ji arrived just as you were driving away? Yeah, he said, well, you may not remember, but I was in the car with him. I said, oh. And what happened was the night before they were in Lucknow or something like that. And all the devotees were asleep in the living room. Maharaj-ji came into the room in the middle of the night and tried to wake Gurudat Sharma up. But he couldn't wake him up. So he picks him up, throws him over his shoulder, takes him out, throws him in the back seat of the car, and they take off in the car in the middle of the night. And Gurudat woke up like, what's going on? Yeah. So Gurudat told me they drove as fast as they could possibly drive all night long. And just outside, and they didn't stop, just outside of Vrindavan, Maharaj says, Roko. So Gurudat thought it was a peace stop or something, right? But no, they just sat in the car for 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, Maharaj says, Chalo. And again, they drove as fast as... He timed his arrival to be at the moment of our greatest despair. 1 second more, and I would have started that car and driven away.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
He did that on purpose. I mean,
oh my God.
What? And Gurudat said, we drove fast all night long, all night. Maharaj-ji kept saying to the driver, faster, faster. And then just outside of Vrindavan, stop for 20 minutes. That's the 20 minutes that we got lost in the bazaar because I missed the turn.
Oh my God. Yeah, this is like, I mean, our ordinary mind cannot even conceive this. Yeah, no.
If we were ripe, really spiritually ripe, a story like that would be it. We'd be finished. It'd be enough. But we're not ripe. So later that day, we're sitting with Maharaj-ji, and I'm sitting, Ram Dass is sitting there, and I'm sitting right next to Ram Dass. Maharaj-ji looks at Ram Dass. He said, when you were in India last time, did you give me medicine? Yes. Oh. Did I take it? I think so. Oh. Got any more? Yes. Give it to me. So again, Ram Dass takes like 3 or 4 major hits of acid, puts them on. This time Maharaj-ji went like this. He took a pill, he goes.
Okay. Because he knew Ram Dass had the doubt in his mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so Ram Dass goes, oh my God, he knew I had this little bit of doubt. So then he takes the acid and he sits there, and then all of a sudden he takes his blanket up over his head, and then he opens it up like this and he goes, and he closes again, he goes, and Ram Dass turned purple. I had never seen a purple human being before or after that moment, because he thought, oh my God, he didn't take the acid the first time. Now he's trying to prove to me that he could do it. I've killed my guru, what's gonna, oh my, you know. And the minute Ram Dass thought that, Maharaj just dropped the whole thing, and he laughed.
Oh
and he said,
God.
oh, yogis have known about this for thousands of years. He said, nobody, you know. And then we sat around all day, nothing, no change.